Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's been a while. We've taken a little bit of a hiatus here at the Fantasy Cast, but we are back. Ty White joined alongside me. I'm Lachlan McTagg. This is episode 25 of the Fantasy Cast. Unfortunately, friend Christian Haggith couldn't make it out today. He's got some school commitments going on, so good on him. Always respect the hustle from Christian. But it's just us two today, and quite a lot has happened since we last spoke to you, fine fantasy football connoisseurs. So we're going to talk a little bit about offseason moves, break it all down in fantasy terms, because not all the moves that were made in the offseason were directly related to fantasy football, which seems a little weird, but we'll get into that later. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the draft later on, because this draft, it is strange. It is
weird one.
Very strange. And this offseason also has been really strange. But first of all, Ty, I know I've seen you a few times since I've been home. But how's school? How's life in the city? Is all good here?
Life's doing wonderful. It's so good to do this because the last one was over a month ago, nearing 2 months that we did together. And that was obviously before the Super Bowl. Congrats to the Rams. I mean, I called it. What can we say? I think we all called it, really. But
it's true.
It's great. Cool Life's great. Did my first, as many of you know, I do another radio show with Ryerson. I've been doing that in studio now, just off of Church Street. It's a beautiful studio in person. There's also a video feed online as well. But school's been fun. We're getting towards the end though. Last month, actually, in first year. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, your finals are probably coming up, eh?
Yes, next week. Working hard for that, but trying to have fun as well, trying to enjoy it. Lachlan, I mean, I know you got a birthday coming up, so that's even more special. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing all good. It's been close to a month now since our season ended, unfortunately, in the playoffs in Massachusetts. Been to a couple universities, just seeing friends, hanging out in the city, between the city and up north as well. But I'm actually leaving for a nice little vacation. We have to take our family hasn't really taken a vacation in like 2 years.
Yeah.
So we're kind of due for one. So we're going out west to Vancouver tomorrow, leaving at 6 a.m. for the airport. It's gonna be lovely. But we're gonna Whistler for a couple weeks. I haven't been to Whistler in I think 3 or so years, and we go out there usually. I mean, that's where I learned to ski when I was like 2.5. So I know that mountain like the back of my hand right now. So I'm super excited for that, but I'm even more excited to talk about all the off-season moves that were made. And by the way, that was a phenomenal transition by myself.
It was really good. That was clean.
I'm not afraid to admit that. So
clean.
I have a quick list of stuff that happened here.
Okay.
In the offseason. Just a quick rundown. Tyreek Hill traded. Russell Wilson traded. Devontae Adams traded. Deshaun traded. Tom Brady unretired.
Yeah.
That still just doesn't sit well with me, but that's all good. Aaron Rodgers returns to Green Bay after the second straight offseason of rumors of him going elsewhere. Just incredibly strange situation. Von Miller literally got $120 million from the Bills. I'll talk about that a little later because I have some mixed feelings on that contract length, but I don't know. We'll see. Carson Wentz traded. Khalil Mack traded. Ty, you'll love that.
Oh, I do.
Amari Cooper traded. Matt Ryan traded. Baker obviously requested a trade even before Deshaun was dealt.
Yeah.
The writing is kind of on the wall there. And then Julio, another big name, he was cut.
Yeah, that's got to hurt a little bit.
Yeah. So
I mean, it makes sense, but we'll talk about a bunch of these.
So, I mean, tons of big names have just been getting tossed around the league. The QB carousel is back at it again.
Oh, it's flying.
So yeah, let's break it all down because I think it's so strange to have this many big names just circulating.
No, it is.
And teams also that are like kind of mediocre, and you wouldn't think be in a position to acquire players that they've acquired. They just go do it. Like the Raiders, the Raiders had no business getting Devontae Adams. No business other than maybe cap space. But that trade just, I don't know. Like that trade just didn't make sense to me. I saw that and I'm like, that makes no sense.
It was kind of random. You thought probably he might consider going more of a contender. There was also the thought of him going to, I've heard a couple teams, one of which, of course, is a fan, was the Chargers, considering he's from California. He likes LA. He went to Fresno State, which is fairly close. But he decided to go to the Raiders and connect with his old college quarterback at Fresno State, Carr, of course, Derek Carr. And then, I mean, that team, if you look at offensively, maybe one of the best offensive rosters in the NFL. Hunter Renfrow is an easy number one on most teams, and he's number two because Devontae's there on top of Darren Waller, and Josh Jacobs, and a quarterback who's well above average. So, I mean, they got a solid roster. They got a really solid roster.
It just sucks that they're the division they're in right now, though.
It's a tough division because of all the other moves that have been going on. It's been crazy. This offseason, just for the record, has been the craziest offseason in recent memory. Definitely the last 10 years or more. I mean, everything that's happening, so many impactful moves all over the board. Much more interesting than who's going to get drafted. I'll be honest with you. Way more interesting than the draft.
Yeah. This regular season was probably one of the better regular seasons in the past little while. This playoffs was just phenomenal,
jam-packed
through and through. And then, just when you think things couldn't get interesting, you get a couple week break, and then all of a sudden the free agency is just going, free agency and trades are just going nuts. Russ to Denver, that day, another very interesting move, because Denver's looking like they're starting to piece themselves back together a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't like they gave up Noah Fant, though. That's tough, but that's a good acquisition from Seattle, because Fant's a very good tight end, very effective.
He is a good tight end, but the thing, like, people don't realize, and I recognize this as someone who watches the AFC West religiously. Denver is a legitimate roster. I mean, like, they have very good players, including, of course, Russell Wilson. Look at the receiving core. They're finally given a good quarterback. Like, I'm not saying, like, Teddy Bridgewater was okay on a loaded Saints team. This offense on Denver needs someone to spark them. Russell Wilson can certainly do that. Do I think that he was the Russell Wilson he was maybe 2 or 3 years ago? Let Russ cook? Probably not. Nonetheless,
but still, he's an elite veteran playmaker who's won a Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Right.
I know. And look at their backfield. The fact that they have Javonte Williams. I mean, that guy is a stud. He's an absolute stud.
Melvin Gordon behind him too.
Yeah.
And Melvin Gordon's falling off, but
a little, but he's still like
2018,
he was a top 5, top 6 running back. So he's there. Jerry Jeudy, obviously, expecting him to have a big year. Tim Patrick as well. I mean, they got studs out there. Noah Fant was elite. Sorry, I should rephrase that. He had the potential to be elite. He wasn't exactly on Denver, and they loved the backup. They loved using the backup tight ends. They didn't even use Noah Fant that much there. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a shift. But Noah Fant's a good addition to any team that he goes to, although I don't think he's going to do much in Seattle until he gets some help. But they also signed a good corner, Quan Williams, to a 2-year contract, as well as Randy Gregory to 5 years on top of the star-studded defense that they already had.
That was a weird exchange, because Randy Gregory originally signed with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there's just reports of him signing with Denver. Because apparently, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he didn't like the terms and conditions or some of the conditions.
Something to do along those lines with the deal.
In the Cowboys contract. So he just said, screw it. Denver gave him, $5 million more, maybe? Yeah. Same contract, just $5 million more. And
just a bit of a better deal. And that team was looking very good. Like, their defense last year was great. One of the they gave teams tough times. They gave Herbert tough times. They picked off Herbert for, even though it wasn't really his fault, but still they picked him off for a pick 6. They held off a really good offense, and they have good players over there, man. Patrick Surtain, I mean, they got some ballers.
Yeah, we'll
And
see what they do in the draft too, because they got a decent position in the draft, I think, as well.
yeah, because they were not a playoff team,
Yeah.
obviously. So
Moving
uh,
on now, Deshaun and Amari Cooper, both to Cleveland.
yeah, and I love this move. I absolutely love it, despite what people might say about Deshaun's legal issues.
Well,
If he
yeah, I
comes
mean,
back,
all that aside,
yeah,
my biggest worry is that he hasn't played in a year.
yeah, but you have to keep
It's
that is a
Deshaun
legitimate
though.
point. You have to get the rust off. However, the fact that team didn't make the playoffs is an absolute joke. It's a joke
Yeah, they
that
were
the
loaded,
Browns didn't make the playoffs.
completely
Someone who
loaded.
almost beat the
Yeah.
Chiefs to go to the AFC Championship game the year before. That's a joke. Their defense, amazing. Receiving core below, like probably a little bit below average. Now you have Jarvis teamed up with Amari Cooper.
Yep.
Njoku's supposed to have a big year. You have Nick Chubb as well as Kareem Hunt and
Yep.
Deshaun Watson. Wow,
With
that is going to be
a very, very solid defense as well.
and O line is not bad
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good O line actually.
The Browns are pretty well rounded, and they're another team that could go out and draft someone because they're non-playoff team as well, right? So
yeah.
Or actually, no, they can't because they traded that pick for Deshaun.
Oh,
Never mind.
good point. They still have. Do they have I forget if they have late first round. I don't think they do, but they do.
I think the Texans have 3 firsts though this year.
Yeah,
which is just phenomenal.
It might help. You never know with Houston, because I don't know. They have a history of doing some questionable things in the draft. Oh, they got some good players, obviously like TJ Watt and such, but JJ Watt. But it's very interesting, the Browns team, because then you look at the stacked division. Everyone has a stacked division. In the AFC West, of course, the NFC West already had one for the last couple of years. But the AFC North now, with Pittsburgh, they already had a good team. Despite who's going to be playing quarterback for them. Even though I don't know. We can talk about Mitch Trubisky, but honestly, I don't know. The Bengals, good team. Playoff team.
Just went to the Super Bowl. I mean,
just went to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow, and then you throw in the Ravens with that, and people forget about Lamar Jackson, that he was an MVP. They're going to come back. They had a lot of injuries last year, which does absolutely.
J.K. Dobbins is back as well.
So many big guys, and then you throw in this Cleveland team. That division is going to be so exciting. I expect lots of primetime football games coming their way, and I'm looking forward to watching those.
Yeah. Moving on now. A couple of older QBs, obviously Tom Brady unretiring and Aaron Rodgers returning. Not really much to talk about there because I was saying this before. I didn't think Brady was done.
Yeah.
He played too well last year to just call it quits.
Just go out, yeah. He looked like he could easily finish out his contract in Tampa and then maybe consider something after that, because he just looked too efficient last year and too good to just say I'm done. No, you're absolutely right. And maybe if he finished out on top of the Super Bowl, I almost guarantee that he would have at least called it quits at that point. But I think
he would have pulled a John Elway for sure.
Yeah, and I think he wants to Brady's smart enough, and he recognizes that the situation he's in currently is fantastic, and he still has a very good chance at winning or getting to another Super Bowl. One interesting thing, Bruce Arians stepped down as head coach, and Todd Bowles, who was the defensive coordinator, is another African-American head coach actually now in the NFL. He's stepping in. Todd Bowles, wow. I mean, the defense that he's put together the last couple of years, he knows what he's doing. So that's a scary team. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, I mean, I feel so bad for him. He has no help. Almost no help. It's a joke what the Packers franchise has treated him over his career in terms of weapons to give him. Is no.
I mean, you could say, Aaron Jones and Devontae, and they've given him, and they built a pretty good defense over the years. He could just they just never quite closed it out in the NFC championship
in big games, but that's because he was outworked, out depth. Look when he played Brady. Look at the weapons that Brady had on his side. His Rodgers' defense, I will say, let him down in that game a little bit. although he might have not played the best, I mean, you just need a little bit more depth, especially when you look at the team now at face value. I mean, who's their number one? Like Alan Lazard.
Yeah.
I'm literally trying to. Robert Tunyon's still there. I mean, like
Yeah.
they definitely need a
The
little more
window's
help.
kind of closed, I think, on the
Absolutely.
Packers making any more runs.
Yeah.
Um,
It was a little
yeah.
confusing why to me, I mean, he's still playing great football, but
Oh,
maybe he wanted a
yeah.
better
He's
situation.
he's a fantastic quarterback. It's
Yeah.
just he's going to have less help than he's had in the last few years
Yeah. Like people
in
would
Green
love to
Bay.
see him on like Pittsburgh or something like that, which honestly, I think that
The
would be,
Commanders.
yeah,
Oh,
or the, oh, what a terrible
that
name.
hurts to say.
Hurts the tongue, doesn't it? Yeah. Uniforms are nice. Team name not so nice.
We're gonna talk a little bit about a QB carousel going on here because Carson Wentz
Hmm.
got traded to Washington.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the Colts would trade Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I liked him on the
I
Colts.
liked him on the Colts. He just
Yeah.
lost a game in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Like that.
I don't really understand what the Colts are trying. Well,
I don't know
okay.
what they're trying to do. And then they trade for Matt Ryan, who's maybe got
Yeah.
1 or 2 years left in the tank.
To be honest, like in my opinion, Matt
Now,
Ryan is a better version of Carson Wentz.
absolutely. Well,
Similar.
Matt Ryan's an MVP quarterback.
Yeah,
And
similar in play. He's had MVP in his past.
he's got some phenomenal metrics to him as well. And he's going to have a very, very good O-line with some solid weapons around him. Well, he's used to having solid weapons around him in Atlanta because he did it during his time there. Even in the last couple of years too, even when Julio was hurt, he still had Calvin Ridley. He still had Ridley to go to, and he had Cordell Patterson last year. That guy was a weapon.
Todd Gurley, Davis.
Gurley was a bit of a flop with Atlanta, but that's all good. But I feel like it's an upgraded version of what they did with Phillip Rivers.
Yes,
because I think Rivers was truly at the end of the line.
Yes,
and kind of got squeezed out in LA, obviously.
Yeah, and that's still, it's like Rivers still brought them to the playoffs. Wentz failed to beat Jacksonville. We were joking a lot about that. There was a huge argument I had with a bunch of my friends in my program at school about where Mac Jones ranks like that. And we were talking, people were making an argument to see if Carson Wentz was better than him. And it was funny they kept reiterating that he couldn't even beat Jacksonville to get into the playoffs, which is kind of
Josh
true.
Allen also lost to Jacksonville in the
but this wasn't in like Jackson.
No, I know.
Well, we're gonna get in the playoffs regardless.
No,
this
I
is
know.
like a clutch game that he blew. The team blew too.
Yeah,
but
I think I would not put that game on solely on Carson Wentz. Obviously, he had a lot to do with that outcome, but I would not.
But a good player,
would
elevate. A quarterback should elevate their team.
And I feel like it's a bit unfair because I feel like Carson Wentz, because Carson Wentz is still young enough. Like Carson Wentz was supposed to be the guy in Philly. Yeah. If Nick Foles didn't play out of his mind in the playoffs, Carson Wentz, I think, would still maybe be in Philly. Depending on whether they draft Jalen Hurts or not.
Definitely that and injuries. That's a good point. But the thing I don't love that the Colts are doing, they're not leaving any time to build a lasting chemistry. Like you mentioned, Rivers, one and done. Wentz, one and done.
One and done.
Now they have Matt Ryan. I mean, what's gonna happen? Like you said, 2 years.
Matt Ryan's maybe 2 years left, maybe.
But that being said, Wentz on the Commanders, I don't think is bad at all. I mean, they have weapons on the Commanders. That team should be decent. That team should actually be pretty decent, especially got a good defense too.
And that division, their division's going to be trash again this year.
Yeah, division shouldn't be amazing, so they have a chance at potentially.
I guess the Cowboys, but depends on
Cowboys, but Eagles are iffy. The Giants are always trash. I mean, like they're probably going to be better this year, but still. This is probably Daniel Jones's last year, in my opinion, if nothing changes. But on the Colts end of things, I like that. I think Matt Ryan will work well. He has lots of weapons. He has Jonathan Taylor.
The thing I like too about Matt Ryan is he's going to be a very calming presence for that locker room, because there's a lot of guys on the Colts who are fairly young.
Right? When you said that, what literally just ran through my head was that hot mic moment of him saying, get fucking set. Like, have you ever seen
Oh,
that? That just ran. Sorry, that just tossed through my head there.
yeah,
But
yeah.
no, but you got a good point. You got a great point. Yeah.
No, I think he's gonna be a pretty impactful piece to that locker room.
Mm.
Obviously being in the league for as long as he has at his age and doing what he's doing still. I mean, I don't know, not a bad move. It just kind of hurt as a Falcons fan a little bit to part ways with him after parting ways with Julio only a couple years ago. It's like, it's all kind of crashing down, you know.
The whole 2017 team is out the window.
It's gone.
Yeah.
What else here? Oh, talk pass rushers here a little bit.
Oh, of course.
A couple
Big
of
pass rushing
so
moves.
we'll start with Khalil Mack.
Sure.
Obviously, the Chargers trade for Khalil Mack. That was just an electric trade.
I'm so excited about that. Like, really, from the bottom of my heart, I was like almost on the tears of joy, because it's a beautiful move for many reasons. One, obviously, Khalil Mack, when healthy and playing,
is an alien. Literal alien.
Maybe top 3 defensive player in the NFL. He was a top 3 player in the entire NFL, according to the NFL's like 100 best players rankings multiple years. The fact, though, he is reuniting with Brandon Staley. For those of you who don't know, I love Brandon Staley, coach of the Chargers. His first ever coaching stint in the NFL, which was, believe it or not, he's already a head coach. It was only like 4 years ago. It was with the Chicago Bears as the linebackers coach, outside linebackers coach, which was Khalil Mack.
And then that was the year that the Bears won the AFC North.
The NFC North, yes.
NFC North, my bad.
No, you got it right, though. They won the NFC North. The Bears had statistically ranked the #1 defense in the NFL. A large part of that was because of Brandon Staley's coaching style with linebackers, including Khalil Mack. He got along with him very well there. There's like, he has a signed jersey of Mack in his room that Mack made to him, even though he only spent 1 year there. And everywhere Staley's gone, he's built a good defense. And now, but the thing was, he only focused on defense because he was a head coach this year. He was forced to protect the best player, Herbert, by fixing the O-line and not fixing the defense. Now you could see he's stacking up on defense. We signed all these great players, including J.C. Jackson.
We'll talk about him a little later.
Yeah, for sure. Sebastian Joseph Day, who just won the Super Bowl with the Rams. We signed some beasts, including Khalil Mack. I love that relationship. I think he's going to fit. Just take it.
Again, that division still is crazy. But yeah, Bosa on one side, Khalil Mack on the other side.
Bosa and Khalil Mack, ridiculous. And Derwin James. So I was very happy about that. I think it's a great move.
Yeah,
and we got him for a 2nd and a 6th.
Yeah,
his
age and contract have to have a lot to do with that. It's a similar to return to what the Titans got with Julio.
Yeah.
And it's funny now, you don't really hear any people complaining that the Falcons didn't get a first for Julio now that he's cut from Tennessee. Yeah. Interesting how that works sometimes.
Yeah.
But another pass rusher / linebacker, Von Miller.
Oh yeah. Bills fan, I'm sure you're excited about that.
Got the bag. I am and I'm not.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why I'm not, because I don't love the length of the contract. But
so was it 7? Was it
5? I think it was 5 years. 5 years, 120.
Yeah.
5 or 6 years, 120. And Von Miller is 32.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. It may have been a strategic move by Brandon Beane to maybe sign him for more years to get the AAV down. I don't know if that's just like a hockey term that I'm speaking, but like get the actual number, like get the cap hit down. Maybe water down the cap hit by just giving him just a ridiculously long contract. I don't know, because I foresee in year 3 or 4 they just cut Von Miller and he retires.
Yeah, which could very well happen.
Could very well happen.
But Super Bowl champion, former Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah,
he's still, last year he was the most impactful player that the Rams brought in all year. Maybe the most impactful offseason or in-season move that anyone made last year. It was a big part of why they won that Super Bowl and made a good playoff run. I think he's a good fit on the Bills.
I think he's a fantastic fit as well, because I know the Bills were probably in the final 3 teams for the JJ Watt sweepstakes last year. So they've been wanting a player, like an impactful player on the defensive end like that, for a couple years now, as they've been building the contention wagon.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
He's
think
running
Von Miller's
already a great defense.
already a
Like they've got
fantastic defense.
number
But
one
now,
defense in the
yeah,
NFL last year.
yeah, but they just needed to get a little faster on the defensive end.
And they did. Him
And
and
yeah,
Gregory Rousseau, I think that's going to be a big problem.
Tremaine Edmonds as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And then
That'll
don't
be
forget about their D line as well.
yeah.
Guys
So
like Ed Oliver.
yeah, Ed Oliver's scary.
Yeah, they got it. They got a scary D line. They got some scary linebackers now. And then all they need to do, obviously they have Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, and then
Matt Milano in the middle. I mean,
yeah,
they got
Matt
some.
Milano's that's another linebacker who's back again. They lost Levi Wallace at corner, so they're gonna have to inevitably draft a corner.
Yeah, but
Um,
I don't think that's going to be a big hit or a substantial hit in the end. I think they're
No.
going to win the division easily.
yeah, I mean, certainly trending that way.
Yeah. It was a good pickup.
Yeah,
Rest of the offseason, the Bills haven't done too much. They lost Cole Beasley, which
expected.
I mean, yeah, it was
expected.
probably going to happen. But I think that was partially because they saw what Gabriel Davis can do and 4 touchdowns.
Isaiah McKenzie as well had a good
they got
season
very
too.
capable guys.
Like
it's unfortunate.
It's
like
unfortunate.
Beasley.
Yeah, I like Beasley as well, and he was a big because I remember the Bills a couple of years ago just completely overhauled their receiving core before they got Diggs.
Yep.
And they signed John Brown and Beasley, and those two guys were instrumental in kind of reshaping the Bills receiving core. But
Yep.
Beasley can have a much bigger role on any other team than he would in Buffalo.
Because they're so stacked.
Because Buffalo's just got a good receiving core going for them, right? Like they have Emmanuel Sanders, they have Stephon Diggs, Isaiah McKenzie,
Dawson Knox too.
Yeah, well, Dawson Knox at tight end, and Gabe Davis, of course. But yeah, Von Miller, good move for the locker room. I just was just weirded out by that contract length. It just seems strange. But yeah, Von Miller, 120 mil for Buffalo. Yeah. Now I think we're going to go on to not quite the draft. I just want to get your 2 cents on what you think the most overrated move is first, and then we're gonna talk about some underrated moves because I know I have a couple, or I have one in particular, and we both have a couple that we could talk about as well. So Ty, what's overrated move? Bit of a hot take, maybe.
Bit of a hot take. Certainly a fantastic player. However, like at what cost? So my answer to this will probably be Tyreek Hill, or at least at the moment it's Tyreek Hill. Simply because like the Dolphins gave a lot for him.
It's 5 draft picks.
Yeah, it's expected 5 draft picks, including the fact that you boosted his contract, overpaid him even more, like 75 or something million, around the 75 to 70 million range, guaranteed money. That's ridiculous.
That's not, all guaranteed.
That is ridiculous for a wide receiver. That makes him the highest non-paid quarterback in the league.
And that contract will just cripple the Dolphins.
Yes.
Because what if Jalen Waddle puts together a couple Pro Bowl seasons? All of a sudden you got to sign him, and then he's going to want a big contract. Yeah. And all of a sudden you can't afford skill position guys because you're paying your 2 wide receivers like $100 million combined, or even more than that. And then Tua's gonna want a big extension because he's just tossing touchdowns to both those guys, and it just creates.
He's on his rookie contract too. And taking the fact that they brought in Chase Edmonds as well. They already have Miles Garrett, Xavier Howard on defense. I mean, they have some like pretty substantial tools.
Yeah, but there's
money.
All that just to finish second in the division, though.
Yeah, which is true. They're going to be fighting for a playoff spot. Tua is not as bad as people say he is. He really isn't.
Well, we're going to find out how good or bad Tua is.
All the memes thrown his way. Some of them are pretty funny. I find it as a Chargers fan because a lot of people wanted to draft Tua over Herbert. I find that kind of amusing. But he's not a bad quarterback by any means. I think it's going to show next year. The Dolphins are going to have a decent season, at least offensively, I think.
But I've heard though that the Jets had a deal in place with the Chiefs for only for 3 draft picks, I think, and they didn't give up either one of their first round picks this year. And the Chiefs were like, "Oh yeah, we're good with that trade. We're gonna," and Tyreek would have just gone to the Jets for whatever 3 draft picks, probably like a couple seconds and like a third or something like that. Still some pretty substantial picks in the NFL.
No, for
Um,
sure. Yeah, no,
but
that's
then all of a sudden, apparently the Dolphins just came out of nowhere and were like 5 draft picks, 2 first rounders, like all this, and the Chiefs are like, all right,
take it and
fine,
go, baby.
fine.
And they did. But and it's interesting too, before we just hop onto your section, is Juju Smith-Schuster left Pittsburgh and is joining the Chiefs. That's interesting.
Perfect fit. That is a perfect fit.
Yep, because of people. He's actually been asked in press conferences about Jackson Mahomes, and he had no response. Or
Which
just
is just which is I find that just ridiculous.
yeah,
Both you and I are going into the sports media sector.
yeah,
If I was ever a reporter in that situation, I would never even touch that subject.
yeah. Unless you work for like TMZ or like some
Yeah, but if
I
you're
don't
working for
know
TMZ, then why you would
Vox
have
or like
yeah,
some off-brand
yeah.
that kind of touches on sports occasionally or bigger stories. But yeah, like you said, ridiculous question. He's there to play football, amusing to the internet. But on the other hand, Lachlan was the most underrated signing so far.
I think one of the more underrated signing. I won't say the most because that's a pretty polarizing use of words.
But
One of the more underrated signings I think is what's his name?
Don't know.
Oh my,
Who is it?
who is it? Tight end going to Tennessee, 1 year, $6 million deal.
Austin Hooper.
It's Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper to the Titans, 1 year, $6 million. I think that's tremendous value because don't forget, Austin Hooper was, I said this to you all the time, Austin Hooper was a Pro Bowl tight end until he left Atlanta, and he chose money because Cleveland gave him the bag, and then they didn't play him because they had David Njoku, and then they franchise tagged him this offseason, and then cut Austin Hooper. Very humbling. So he's now got a big opportunity in front of him in a pretty good offense, pretty solid team in Tennessee. Obviously, the defensive end of the ball is still a little iffy, but overall solid team, and he can really make some waves this offseason. I think he could potentially be a decent fantasy option too, as well.
No, for sure, because you look back to 2 seasons ago when they had Jonnu Smith, and that was a great interplay between Tannehill faking a handoff to Henry and running, Henry actually running, or them faking a throw into the end zone in which usually Jonnu Smith was on the receiving end of that. He got a bunch of touchdowns that year. Austin Hooper is a jacked version of that, someone who has been a Pro Bowler, in my opinion, better than Jonnu Smith in a lot of ways. He's a solid player.
He hasn't been able to showcase his talent, though. That's the problem.
No.
Cleveland never quite gave him the chance because they had Njoku. He was always that second guy.
Not the right fit for him, in my opinion.
Not at all.
He's the obvious number one, but I don't even know that number 2 is like Fisker or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's his name.
I think Fisker would be better for run block, though. You bring him in for run blocking.
For sure.
And Hooper's more of an offensive weapon.
Big target. I mean, that's going to cut. Tennessee was already last year. That just brought him to another level. And they did that pretty much without using Julio Jones that much. So if anything, they got better this offseason offensively.
Yeah.
I was
going to say another underrated signing is from your Chargers. I know we talked about this before. JC Jackson.
Yeah.
That just flew over everybody's head.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the more under talked about signings because JC Jackson was phenomenal in New England last year.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
With interceptions, he was arguably the best corner in the league. His Instagram handle is literally Mr. INT. That tells you what he thinks about himself. He's a very talented individual. He's so instinctive on defense. He loves aggression, and he's not afraid to back away from push-offs and stuff like that. That's what makes him such a good corner for someone who's not really the tallest out there. But it's scary when you put on paper and you realize, okay, you have Derwin James, Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack. Now you have JC Jackson and Asante Samuel Jr., who people forget he was injured last year, picked off Patrick Mahomes last year. I mean, he was good. He had a pretty good rookie season. So they have DBs. They have Nasir Adderley, a couple other people that many of you probably aren't familiar with, but they got more depth there. That's all that matters. And it's scary. And you mentioned this many times, like the AFC West now is loaded offensively and defensively across the board on literally every single team. It's going to be a dogfight to be finished in first. Honestly, I don't think the Chiefs are obvious favorites.
the Raiders might finish last.
There's a chance like that could happen.
And the Raiders are not a bad team.
Yeah, the Chiefs on it, like technically, if you look at this, like what could happen, especially with schedules coming out, the Chiefs could finish third, which sounds ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
if Denver's got to overperform, I think a little bit.
For sure. But they lost Tyrann Mathieu, of course, and like their defense, I don't know, like Juju definitely helps. But obviously the Chiefs are still going to be a good team, but it's going to be a very tight battle for the first place.
Kelsey's
first place spot, in my opinion.
As someone who has Kelsey, I don't know if I'm going to keep him or not now, based on Tyreek's not there, because now
a lot
he's
more double coverage.
Where you couldn't double cover him before, now you absolutely can.
Yeah, he's going to get chipped by linebackers. The chip by D linemen and linebackers, and then tossed off between a DB or two and a linebacker. So
still
it's going to be more tough for him. He's going to have a good.
It's still gonna be
Travis Kelce. He's still going to have a decent season or a good season. But yeah, that's interesting. That pretty much does it for the offseason, though. I mean, that was a bunch to talk about.
Yeah. Now on to the draft, and this draft is so strange because
very weird.
Obviously, it's not very quarterback heavy.
Yeah.
Which some people, when they watch the draft, obviously you look at like who's the best quarterbacks in the draft and who's like your franchise QB, but everyone has their franchise QB because everyone drafted them in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
There's very few teams that actually need quarterbacks.
Yeah. It's not a quarterback heavy draft, therefore it's not as name heavy, and people aren't as familiar with what's going on. But there's still quite a bit of good talent out there. If you want to look at directly quarterbacks, I mean, you have Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. You have Kenny Pickett, undersized hands, famously in the draft. He's smaller hands, rather.
Smaller hands.
Out of Pitt, and then Malik Willis.
A lot of people are putting Malik Willis as the top QB in the draft.
Yeah,
at least for my but this is so because I've looked at a bunch of mock drafts the past couple of weeks, and I have yet to see two similar mock drafts.
Yeah, they're very different.
Very different.
Especially,
I was saying,
you look back to the beginning of the year, or even like the projected drafts coming into this current draft at the beginning of the season in college football. Kayvon Thibodeau was like almost a consensus number one across the board.
He's slipping for some reason.
Not anymore. He's like 10th. I see him outside the 10 spot. That is outrageous in my opinion.
That is outrageous because if he falls to you, you got to get that guy.
Yeah, like for someone who watches Pac-12 football and Oregon specifically, because of Justin Herbert more so in the last year or so, he's so impressive. He's so he didn't play a bit last year, of course, some injuries. However, such a big body, very skilled pass rusher. He's like a Swiss Army knife of a pass rusher. He can do so much. He's very scary, and people are sleeping on him. And whatever team picks him up is going to be so lucky. I think it's dumb to draft him out. Anyone who passes on him, unless you like have direct need, that's not a pass rusher. He's just one of those players that I think is very tough to just say no to.
Yeah, right now I'm seeing one of the mock drafts I'm looking at was the Lions at number 2 picking Tavon Walker.
Yeah.
Or Trayvon Walker, excuse me. And junior out of Georgia. Trayvon Walker's he's pretty good. I feel like you can't go wrong between him and Thibodeau, but if obviously Aiden Hutchinson's probably right now the consensus number 1 overall pick. I think that's probably the only like sure pick that we really know of in the draft.
1 or 2 spot for sure.
Yeah. And then after that, it's just a mess.
Yeah, great season.
Whereas like last year, I feel like the first couple picks were locked in. And then after that, it was like, okay, if they don't pick him, they're picking him.
Yeah.
But now there's just so many different variables at play for each pick, because I feel like every team now has multiple needs.
Yeah.
Even like mid first round, every team is like, okay, we could And I was saying this before we were recording. I was like, I feel like every team now is like, okay, well, we have a desperate need to draft a corner because we lost one of our guys in free agency, but we also haven't drafted an lineman in 3 years.
Yep.
In the first round or something like.
It's very true. Quite a few good O-linemen in the draft. There always are. That's like one of the guaranteed positions that you're going to get at least a couple of studs every year, just because it's so similar to the NFL in a lot of ways, the way that they're brought up from college. But two excited players, players that I'm very excited to watch. I think there's stud picks. One is Kyle Hamilton. Obviously, DB for Notre Dame.
Oh my God.
What an amazing season he had. The Notre Dame team, people say they might have underperformed a little bit, but they didn't have a bad year by any means. I mean, they were pushing on the college football national playoffs.
They were knocking on the door all season.
Absolutely. And Kyle Hamilton's a big reason because that's such a dynamic player, so quick out there, very intelligent DB, actually. He can do a lot. And he's really risen up the draft stock this year. People have him, a lot of them have them top 10. I would go as far as saying if I had like the 5th or 6th pick, I would really consider taking him. As well as Sauce Gardner, Lachlan.
Oh, best name of the draft. Sauce Gardner.
Out of
best
Cincinnati.
Name in the draft.
The Bearcats had a great year.
Yeah, they did.
The reason why. Such a aggressive, rough DB. You gotta love that about
loves the press. Loves press.
Loves the press. I like that. I like really rough,
scrappy,
who's not afraid to get dirty, and you can't be afraid of your opponent wide receiver, especially in the NFL when you got such big personalities and people who also aren't afraid of you coming the other way. So I think two will be successful in the NFL. I think they're going to have a great rookie season if they stay healthy. I just hope they get put in the right franchise.
Yeah, I'm also looking at another safety in this draft. Daxton Hill out of Michigan, junior to Michigan. He was one of Michigan's few 5-stars that came into their recruiting class in 2020 or 2019. One of those years. He was one of the few 5-stars I remember. That came in.
20. It might have been 2020.
One of the years. Yeah. But Daxton Hill, fantastic season at Michigan. Even his freshman season, he was terrific. Even on those kind of like mediocre-ish Wolverine teams that did well in the Big Ten and then couldn't beat Ohio State.
Yeah. Look what they transitioned to. Look at this year.
Yeah.
I mean, look how good Michigan.
But his position rank right now in the draft is second behind Kyle Hamilton, and he is slated to fall in some mock drafts in the 20s.
Yeah.
And if the Bills get him, that would be just amazing because he's a guy that can go right in and he can either play safety or he can be a DB for them and just fills that hole immediately.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. He's like, I don't love talking. Well, yeah, I have to, obviously. As an Ohio State fan, you don't love acknowledging that Michigan players are doing really well, but they are, and they had a great season.
He's a fantastic player. Yeah. But also another guy too that would be interesting to watch is your boy Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson is potentially the best receiver of the draft. But potentially Drake London's also there at a USC. And the Falcons, I think, are going to draft a receiver in this draft, I think.
Yeah.
They definitely on the other hand, if Kyle Hamilton falls to them, I think that they're going to take him.
Yeah.
They definitely should draft a receiver because they let Russell Gage walk, which I'm still really pissed off at.
Many things are up for grabs in this upcoming draft. I think the draft is actually in the next month or so, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's late. I think it's in a couple of weeks. Let me search that up.
I remember it being in April in years past. Regardless, it's
April 28th.
Yeah, in less than a month. So that's going to be exciting. The NFL season is still a little bit of a ways away, but I mean, we're making our. It sucks that how long the NFL offseason is actually.
Well, I mean, it's needed because I mean, football is arguably one of the toughest sports on your bodies.
No, for sure, it's physically demanding more so than any other sport, really. But it's exciting, especially with all these moves. You know, people want to see some action.
Well, yeah, it's funny because it's like all these moves are made in like a 2-week period of time. And then it's like, okay, break, mock draft time. Everyone's
Yeah.
studying mock drafts, looking at mock drafts, all this, that, and the next. And then all of a sudden the draft happens. Everyone's like, oh my God, like they got this guy, they got this guy. And, oh my gosh, the future is so exciting for our team. And then just May, June, July. Oh, it's preseason. Oh, whoa. And then it just all kicks off again. It's just strange.
But nonetheless, very exciting times. It was a good episode of the Fantasy Cast. Looking forward. Well, it's more fantasy related, but just football in general, which obviously does have an effect on fantasy football. Interesting stuff, though. I mean, it's really exciting times in the NFL. I'm looking forward to this draft. That's certainly different than years past.
Yeah, I think obviously we'll have to decide what's best for our schedules, but we might in the coming weeks leading up to the draft do more draft preview episodes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hopefully Christian Hagath will be able to join us again, because obviously missing his presence right now.
Yeah,
he's in class. So
great guy, man. Hey, miss him.
Yeah, but anyway, this was a bit of a longer episode, but I mean, we a lot happened. We had to talk about a lot.
Jam-packed
just jam-packed off season thus far, and who knows, I've heard a lot of talk about a lot of pick swaps that could potentially happen on draft night.
Have we seen already with we mentioned the Saints? And, so lots of stuff there. Lots of potential stuff to come.
Yeah, for sure. So leading up to the draft, April 20th to the 30th. Until then, we hope you have a relaxing off season. If you are currently in school, finishing up any exams or finals the next couple weeks, we wish you nothing but the best. If you're not and you just like fantasy football, well, thank you. We do as well. This concludes episode number 25 of the Fantasy Cast. For Ty White, I'm Lachlan McTagg. We will see you guys soon.